Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Camping Camper. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about our camping experience in West Yellowstone. This is mainly going to be about the campground and the area there. And then we're going to have another video focusing on our adventure in the national park. So we stayed at Rainbow Point Campground. That is in, I believe it's pronounced the Gallatin National Forest. I'm not 100% sure about that. People mess things up around my house all the time, so I never heard anybody say it. I think it's Gallatin National Forest. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. There is a beautiful beach at this campground, and it's there's 4 different loops there. The beach is across from the main road from the loop, so you have to cross the main, you have to walk out of the loop, you have to cross the main road, and then you have to go down a very short path to beach access to get out there to the beach. Now it was beautiful with mountains in behind it, and it was spectacular. Spectacular. The campground itself was very pretty. It was a wooded area, and it was just, you know, a typical national forest campsite where you have power, no water, but there's water like near there. One thing that I found a little bit wonky about it was there wasn't a dump station there. You can go into the Grizzly RV Park in West Yellowstone in order to dump. They do allow that from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. However, there is a $20 fee there. I wasn't able to find any other dump sites in the area when I searched, and that was the one that was recommended by the host. Now, we were coming actually here to the Tetons National Park, and so the campground that we're staying at here in Gravant had a dump station, so we just waited till we got here to dump. Now, the campground does close within the next week or so, and so their season is coming to an end. It's starting to get cold in this area of the country, and so they do close down. Now, they'll open back up usually around May 15th is what I read, but it is a very nice campground that I would keep in mind for next year's adventures. I will say the campground was hard to find with our Garmin GPS until I put in a specific address. The address that I found online that I was able to put in, it took me some searching, so I'm going to try to save you here, was 5100 Rainbow Point Road, West Yellowstone. So let's talk about the pros of the area. So the pros is you have some decent sized campsites. There is electrical in 2 different loops, and you know, it's your typical national forest campsite that I search out because there's some woods around. It kind of varies on the density of those woods, but for the most part, most of those sites are going to have a nice open feel to them while being in the woods, which is what I personally search out. As far as Verizon signal goes, we did have 2 bars that seemed to be a pretty consistent signal. We were able to stream a little bit of stuff, but it wasn't the best for streaming. But as far as just, you know, perusing through the internet, it did fine. So as far as the cons to the campground, first of all, it's going to be the location. It's more the road, not the location. You're going to be about 8 to 10 miles from West Yellowstone. Most of that's going to be highway driving where the speed limit's 65 or 70. However, what's going to happen is when you're almost the end, you got to travel about 3 to 4 miles down secondary roads. So when you're going to turn off the highway there to Rainbow Point Drive, it is going to be paved. Now, the posted speed limit there is 45. And when we first turned on there with the camper, it was really bouncy and stuff like that. And so we weren't able to go 45. We were only able to hold about 30 miles per hour. Cars were passing us, and I was like, how are they going this fast? But after we dropped the camper and we went down there with just the truck, the suspension did a lot better job at compensating for that. And we were able to drive 45 most of the way there. So after you're on that paved road, though, you turn to a gravel road. Now, this was the dustiest road I think I've ever been on in my entire life. But it was a little washboardy, but it wasn't too bad. You could still get in there, no problem. Till you get to the campground. Where the campground, they had 2 sets of speed bumps. I don't know why they had speed bumps, because this was the only section of road within the campground that you could actually drive on without being shook all to pieces and not go over 5 miles an hour. So you slow down when you hit the speed bumps, I guess, so that you didn't die whenever you hit all the potholes in the road. Now, again, this is the end of the season. I don't know what things look like at the beginning of the season. I don't know if they go through and they grade those down at all. I don't know, because I'm only looking at one particular spot in time, but I'll tell you that there were potholes all over the road. I'll tell you, there were potholes all over the road, all through the campground loops. And so you had to go extremely slow in and out of there, whether it had a trailer, didn't have a trailer, didn't matter. The biggest issue with the loops themselves and the sites had to do with the angle of backing in, because you're going around a loop. And so ours wasn't too hard, but because you were already going around the loop, it was a pretty sharp angle to get in, and I really needed another couple of feet on the other side of the road. I was able to get it done, but it took me a little while. Now, as far as the town of West Yellowstone, it was a nice little touristy town. There was a museum there, but the museum was closed when we tried to visit, so we couldn't do that. There was a lot of nice shops and souvenir places in the area right there in the middle of town. There was a nice pizzeria that we went to. Now, the line in the pizzeria was like all the way out the door, so we ordered online and got it to go, but it was wonderful. And that was the Wild West Pizzeria and Saloon. Also ate twice at this place called Los Palmitas, which was a Mexican taco bus. I was so impressed the first time that I went back. It was very, very good. We also went to this place called the Running Bear for breakfast one day. It also had a very good breakfast. We were exploring one day and we were in Silvergate, Montana. We went out of the park on one of the other exits, and there wasn't anything open for breakfast that day except for one little bed and breakfast place that we ate at. And I ain't gonna go there, but I'm gonna tell you that this Running Bear in West Yellowstone, it was very good. I want to say that another business there that I had dealings with in West Yellowstone was called Point S Tire Service. I've never heard of Point S, but apparently it is a chain. It's more here out west. But my brakes were squealing on my truck pretty bad. I was pretty sure they were fine, but it kind of needed a tire rotation anyway. So I took it in. They told me that they were really busy, didn't think they'd be able to fit it in that day, but then they told me to come back at 2 o'clock. So I came back at 2 o'clock, and they were apologizing that they took so long, but they were way faster than the place I use at home, and they were very appropriately priced. They told me that when they rotated my tires that my brake pads looked completely new. It looks like they'd just been put on, which was good news to me because that's what I thought, even though, you know, I put those brake pads on a couple years ago. But I use the exhaust brake mostly in the truck with the camper, and I don't use the brakes a whole lot. And I only use the truck usually when I'm pulling the camper. And so I really didn't think that there was any way that the brake pads could be worn down, especially when I had them checked on the last rotation. As you guys know, I do have the Cooper Discover AT3 XLTs, and those are guaranteed for 60,000 miles, but part of that, you have to make sure that you rotate them correctly. And it was going to be pushing it before I got back home because the minimum in the warranty is 7,000 miles. And by the time we drove the 4,000 miles here, a couple other trips that we did before, and all this around everywhere, every day, I was afraid that by the time we got back and I got back in to have them rotated, that I was going to be over that 7,000 mile rating, and that'd end up biting me in the butt. So I just want to go ahead and pay for it, but those guys were great. I also want to let you know that if you're coming out of the west entrance of Yellowstone into West Yellowstone, Montana, there is a place, it's a mobile station that's on the right before you get to the red light. It's 2 or 3 buildings back. They do have a large propane tank in their driveway, which I didn't see before. Somebody told me to go down there, see if they filled propane. They did. They filled my 30-pound tank. It was like $26. So that was way cheaper than any diesel than I bought on this whole trip. So I was very happy about that. And since I found somewhere that would actually fill the propane, I wanted to let you know, because I asked multiple people and nobody knew. We also did decide one day to go down to the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center. It's near the main park entrance in West Yellowstone. And, you know, it was very informative. They had a lot of information there on bears and wolves and otters and eagles. And they had a lot of animals there that, you know, apparently, especially the bears, they were explaining that these were bears that could be deemed problem bears, where people were giving them campground food and then they keep coming back in the campground. So instead of putting them down, they were able to get them in the display there. And so one of the bears, from what I overheard the lady telling somebody else, actually came from the campground that we were staying in here at Rainbow Point. All right, so real quick, we're going to talk about recommended sites. You guys know I usually do that. I have some on here. Really, a lot of these sites are going to be okay. The biggest thing is going to be the size of the site, and it's going to be the angle where you're coming in and out. And so, you know, most everything, if you have something that's 25 feet or less, you're not going to have much issues with anyway. I don't think you're going to have the greatest experience taking anything that's over 30 foot in there. Like I say, my 29 RKS is technically 33 feet. I had to go back and forth a few times, but we got it in no problem. But it did take a little while. So as far as the recommended sites, so we're going to say B3, B14, B18, B19, B17, B11, and then I'm going to throw some out there for the C loop. We were in B loop, so I spent most of the time there. But I'd recommend site C2, C9, and C15. Now I will tell you that loops A and D are no power loops, so that's all dry camping over there. And because of that, a lot of those sites are smaller because they're used to more having camper vans and tents. And so just pay attention to the site size whenever you're picking out your site, and I think that you'll be fine. Now the biggest ones that I have on here to avoid would be C4, and I think that's because it was really small, as well as B8. B8's a nice site. It was only on here because it was kind of at the extremes of the going around the curve one way and having to back the other way type thing. And, you know, all in all, it's a good site. It's just going to take you a little while to get into. So guys, thanks for following us. Thanks for following the channel, supporting the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe if you hadn't, and just stay tuned for next week's video.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.